Hey, what's going on everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk about a recent interview from Gamespot on the creative director at Bluehole, Brendan Greene, who directs the game Battlegrounds. He gave out some information about the Xbox One X port of Playerunknown's Battlegrounds that I wanted to discuss with you guys. So let's get into this. So before we get started, just take a second and listen to what he had to say.
So I mean, what are the challenges in bringing it to console?
Well, again, it's a massive open world. It's like 8x8 with 100 players, which in itself is a challenge. But Unreal is a great engine for that, and like we have it running on Scorpio already, and it runs relatively stably, right? Like we're getting a pretty solid 30 FPS on which is like for a game that we haven't really spent a lot of time optimizing yet. I mean, it's a great start. It's a great start.
So it's running at a stable 30 frames per second with little to no optimization. The main thing I wanted to point out that you said was that's a good start.
It's a great start.
As in they're not finished optimizing the game, so the frame rate could improve before launch of this game because we're still months out from when this game launches. We don't even have an exact release date for Battlegrounds for Xbox yet, but it is coming late this year, so probably November or maybe October at the earliest. It is interesting to say the least that he's saying that's a good start. 30 frames is a good start. And the frame rate, by the way, the frame rate hasn't been confirmed for the final product yet. The game, like I said, the game still has a while to go before launch, and anything can happen. It seems like Microsoft and Bluehole are really collaborating hard on this game, getting it over to the Xbox first as a launch exclusive. So maybe Microsoft could send over some software engineers and help optimize this game, because Microsoft does have way more experience with optimizing games for consoles than Bluehole does. So maybe they could really work together to get this game running at 60 frames per second. That's kind of wishful thinking because it's most likely going to stay at the 30 frames per second. But like I said, anything can happen. We still have a while to go before launch. And another thing to mention is Bluehole is one of those developers that really listens to the community. They listen to the player, what we want. And they can see the Steam statistics on PC. People playing this game now, they see that 60 frames per second is a priority for this game for most players, and they see a lot of people lowering their settings all the way down to get that steady 60 frames. They know what we want as a player for this game, because it is considered a competitive first-person shooter, even though it is third-person as well. It is still a first-person shooter, so 60 frames really does help with the experience when it comes to these types of games, and the developers know that, so it is possible that they are trying to hit that 60 frames per second on Xbox, because with little to no optimization and already hitting a steady 30 frames, that is pretty impressive. And this game isn't like a, visually impressive game. It looks okay, but when it comes to the graphics, they aren't like, they don't blow us away. So I could see this game being optimized enough to hit 60 frames on consoles. I really could. And I know this game is pretty heavy on CPU load because it is 100 players in one lobby. That does take a lot of CPU usage, and I know that Xbox One X's CPU is pretty much the bottleneck for the system itself. But if they can get games like Battlefield 1 to run around 60 frames per second like they do on even the Xbox One S that has a slightly weaker CPU, I'm sure there's a way to get a game like Battlegrounds to still run at 60 frames per second with the upgraded Jaguar that the Xbox One X has. Either way, I'm pretty excited for this game to come out on consoles finally. I think it's going to be awesome, even if it stays in 30 frames per second. It'll be one of those types of games where it's an exception because the game is so much fun. The frame rate isn't going to stop me from enjoying it. It usually would for me with first-person shooters. Like I said, this game is so much fun. I think that 30 frames will be fine. But I just wanted to go over that the possibility of it still being 60 frames on Xbox One X, it's still out there. The frame rate isn't locked. It hasn't been confirmed or anything. They're still optimizing the game. Maybe they might even be able to hit 45 frames per second. Anything above 30 would be better. So we'll have to wait and see. I just wanted to go over what he said because I thought it was interesting that he said it's a good start.
It's a great start.
and we are still months out from launch. So, and another thing I wanted to point out, there's multiple articles online claiming that this is going to be 60 frames per second when it launches later this year. There's not one article, there's not two, but there's three. I found 3 articles online saying that this game is going to be running 60 frames per second when it comes out on Xbox. And these are actually pretty big websites. One of them is Game Reactor, Famitsu, and Game Revolution. I mean, they're pretty big websites, and to write that it's gonna have 60 frames per second in their article, I mean, where are they getting this information from? So I just thought that was interesting because, you know, it's normal for at least one article to get information incorrect. But 3 articles? I mean, that's abnormal for that many misleading articles. So yeah, guys, that's all I wanted to discuss with you. I thought it was interesting, and I still think there is a small chance that it might hit 60 frames per second when it releases later this year on Xbox One X, or maybe a little bit above 30. Because they are still optimizing the game. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, give me a thumbs down. And remember to subscribe here at Rajant Productions for all things gaming, as well as more content on PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. And with that, I'll catch you guys in the next